I trained my mechanics for 30 days to see how much I would improve my fighting and my solo cash cup placements. So on the first day, I just figured out what I sucked at. It's quite a lot. The first thing I noticed is that I continually mess up on double edits. It seems I continually miss the floor that's underneath. So if I'm editing a cone, I'll miss the floor. If I'm editing a ramp, I'll also miss the floor. The second thing I found was I really very frequently mess up my 90s. Now, whether this is just your standard to the right 90, which I'm much better at, or in particular 90ing whilst going to the left, I am horrible at this. So this is something I'm definitely going to put a lot of practice into. The third thing is a pretty major one, which is edit selection. I always choose the right edit a lot of the times, but at the wrong positioning for my own body. So bad peeking is something I do a lot whilst making edits. That's going to be my third major thing to work on. The fourth thing is something I mess up a lot, which is just side jumps. Now, sprinting while side jumping makes it a lot more complicated. So I'm going to figure out a couple ways to do this more consistently. And this also applies for like jumping, sprinting shots where I jump and catch myself. I fall off doing this a lot, and I really need to build better muscle memory here. The final thing seems really simple, but it's actually something I mess up a ton, and that's actually just pulling out my shotgun after I do an edit or a build. A lot of the times I mess up and either pull out my SMG because I just switched the binds, that's a little bit different, or I still have my blueprint edit out whilst I run into someone's face. I want to get into a much better habit of having my shotgun out and ready to shoot an opponent after I make an edit. I'm going to be using my new map, the training hub, which the code will be in the description, and then I'm also doing a lot of 1v1s, which I'm just using Reason's map. I would use my 1v1 map. It's awesome, but not enough people play it. And I love Reason, but the players on his map are genuinely the biggest. Cut that part out, but you see what's going on here. You see what keeps happening. So there's our 5 things I need to work on. Let's get working for 30 days. So at this point in development, the map I was using didn't have a lot of the piece control scenarios that I would use later on, as these were super useful. However, it did have an amazing free build section where I could change the speed in the settings. So for day 2, which is technically my first day of practice, so maybe I'm just lying to you all, I did a ton of free building. Most importantly, at around 70% speed, so I could really try to figure out the right positions to do side jumps from, 90s, and all of the basic things that I pretty much completely suck at. After warming up, I decided to jump into ranked, and I ended up winning a game with 10 kills and another one with 12, which if you know me in solos, that's actually pretty respectable. But at this point, one of the big mistakes that I made across the next couple days was not necessarily having an actual plan to stick to. Now, I would just go in, free build for somewhere from around half an hour to an hour, and obviously I was working on the mechanics that I was really poor at, but I didn't actually have any sort of plan that I wanted to stick to over that time. I would free build, do some 1v1s, play some ranked, repeat. But one of the things I did really well was, even when I didn't have much time, so either I didn't sleep well the night before, I was tired, I was working a lot on videos, whatever it may be, I still got a little bit of time into practice. So regardless of what the day was, I spent at least 15 minutes doing some mechanical practice, which definitely added up by the end of the first week. Funny note, some of the clips I forgot to put game audio on, so they just sound like this. No. Now, day 8 would have the first of the solo cash cups that is part of this video. And actually, as part of this, I felt so good. I unfortunately did not record any of it, but I got 140 points, which is a point PB, so it was basically the best I've ever played. The rest of week number 2 was very similar. Every single day, I was doing my warm-ups, my practice, my 1v1s, a little bit of ranked, and then playing the tournaments that were on as well. And the main thing I can mention here is that I felt so much more controlled as this week went on. The more I practiced my mechanics, the more just the basic things like selecting any edit, positioning yourself on that edit, doing any sort of build combo, it just became way more familiar. And at this point, I'm still pretty much just doing free building. And the second week ended with, you guessed it, another solo cash cup. And this time, I recorded. Who would have thought that this would benefit me, a content creator, to record a cash cup when I am practicing? I actually ended up streaming it. I both streamed Middle East and EU, and I yet again managed to break my point record. I almost qualified on Middle East. Unfortunately, I made a horrible play in the final game and got W-keyed and died because of it. And in EU, I got 143 points, so I actually managed to beat my point BB from the previous week. The GOAT. So continual improvements all the way through the first 2 weeks. Then I went on holiday for a week and a half, so this kind of postponed the video a little bit. But the team over at Unixo, who are helping me make the map, had finished all of the piece control drills by the time I got back, which meant that I decided to actually be smart and make some sort of good practice routine which would help me actually improve at the things that I needed improving at. We also felt like a lot of people who tried to load into the map would probably not know what they were doing and did not know what to decide, so we basically made a couple of routines that would take you through different scenarios that you wanted to improve on or warm up. For the next 2 weeks, I basically did 100 90s, 100 side jumps, 100 piece control drills on the random option, so it randomly chooses between any of the piece control scenarios we have in there, so I have a lot of practice, and 100 wall replaces. All of these I ensured to have the perfect peak option enabled so that the bot would actually shoot me back and I would know whether or not I was making a good peak on the edit, which obviously is something I really needed to work on. I also ensured that I was creating good muscle memory by pulling out my shotgun at the right time every single time. So doing the piece control and the wall replace kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, I'm obviously not just going to show you the clips of these for the next 2 weeks until the challenge is over, because the video would just look like this, which I'm sure is not the most interesting. But basically, as the 3rd week progressed, I started to feel better and better. And that was good because obviously I was already on a high from having the best solo cash cup placement I ever have. Now, coming into the 3rd week, so day number 21, this is where things went a little downhill, and not for the reasons that they usually do. Now, usually when I do these challenges, there's a point where I start to feel really bad. I've practiced too much. I need to take a break. Maybe I'm just too old or something like that. I love this game. But that was not the case this time. The reason I played horrifically when it came to the next Cash Cup on day number 21 was because it was 33 degrees in London and I have no aircon and a fan definitely was not cutting it. Now, if you're from Australia or somewhere south, you go 33 degrees, that's not even that hot. Trust me when I say heat in the UK is something different than it is in most other countries because of how humid it is here. I'm gonna die. No, I knew I was going to die there. A full piece and I missed. So when I was trying to aim playing this solo cash cup, I basically could not move my arm on my mouse pad. It was so sweaty. I understand. That is something disgusting. You don't need to hear that. But I could not hit a shot for the life of me. By the end of this Cash Cup, I was so dehydrated that my arm was actually shaking when the tournament was over. So, unsurprisingly, this Cash Cup did not go very well. And yeah, I purchased an AC to go in my window, and it is literally the best thing I've ever purchased. Would recommend, 10 out of 10. So with my AC freshly installed on next day delivery, because it was still absolutely roasting on day number 22, this was the best my mechanics had ever felt up until this point. All of the practice that I'd done while sprinting, doing the side jumps, and all of the time I'm just pulling out my shotgun just made me feel so much more crisp. But most importantly of all the things that I wasn't practicing, so every other mechanic, also started to become a little bit more crisp. I think this was basically just because I was practicing the fundamentals like sprinting, side jumps, you know, good peaks, good movement, all of those kind of things. So it was really good to see that 3 weeks deep, now I'm actually definitely starting to see some very measurable progress on my mechanics across the board. For the final week of this challenge, the new season had dropped. So on top of doing all of the practice, I was also playing a ton of ranked, which by the way, love this season's ranked. And of course, all of this was building up to the final day where all I wanted to do was play that solo cash cup to prove how much my mechanics improved, see how much 30 days of practice actually helps, and how much this is actually just going to carry over into my tournament placings. And they cancelled it! They ruined my video by cancelling the solo cash cup. I was a little upset. So I thought, what other ways could I possibly measure this? Well, there's a couple ways that I could actually just measure my improvements. The first one was, how am I doing in tournaments? And how's my actual fighting improved? But unfortunately, the only tournaments that I've really been are skin cups, which obviously are not the highest level of play. In one tournament, I managed to drop 2 double-digit elim games myself, which is definitely the first time I've done that, even though it's a skin cup. You know, some of the players aren't the best, I understand. But I can definitely feel the improvements on my fighting just based on the simple mechanics that are just now so much easier. And this is not necessarily showcased that much in our placements, but it is in my own damage ratio. So at the start of this practice, my damage ratios were hovering around 1, which is really not that good whatsoever. Now, however, a lot of the tournaments that I'm playing in duos, my damage ratios are closer to around 1.5. Now, of course, some of these tournaments are easier, I will say that, but at the same time, I'm definitely dealing more damage and taking less, which is pretty much the most important metric that we have to measure how good your fighting is getting. And the second will just be a side-by-side comparison. How many triple hits here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No! My 90s, in particular my 90s to the left, even though I didn't actually practice my 90s to the left that much, have gotten so much better. They are infinitely easier at this point, and I can even incorporate sprinting a lot as well. Side jumps, I also don't mess up anywhere near as much, whether I'm sprinting or not. My double edits have also got much faster, but I will say this is probably the area where I practice the least, and it's also the area where I still struggle at the most. And then my peeking and just pulling up my shotgun has gotten 100 times better. I genuinely love the piece control drills on this. I think they have improved my actual wall-to-wall skills so much. But one of the main things I found was now a problem. Like, my mechanics have caught up so much so that they're not really that much of an issue. Obviously, I'm not Peterbot, I'm not Poyo when it comes to cash cups or anything like that, but they're not something that's really holding me back. Now, my aim is what's holding me back. So for the next 30 days, what I'm going to be doing is completely practicing my aim. We have a whole section for that, which I'm going to be using for the next video on this. So with my AC installed and hopefully a non-cancelled solo cash cups, we'll be able to see how much that improves my damage ratios and placements. So subscribe if you want to see that. And of course, if you want to actually practice yourself, the code is on screen right now. It'll be in the description and in the pinned comment as well. Hope you guys enjoy. Peace.